The man was suddenly possessed by an unknown force. He inexplicably gained powerful telekinetic abilities. His own consciousness was nearly wiped out. He forgot about the comrades who had once fought alongside him and walked straight into the depths of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Anya and the others tried to find him many times, but the place was owned by a private nuclear company. The entrance was guarded by heavily armed men. They couldn't even get through the gate, let alone search inside. Just like that, 6 years passed. Anya and the others had settled into new lives in this changed world. She had become a seasoned journalist. Gosha now worked as an engineer for the National Security Bureau, and Lyosha, now a police officer, was about to get married. They believed their peaceful lives would continue quietly, until one day, the National Energy Council held a press conference to announce they would halt the nuclear company's construction at Chernobyl. A government commissioner would personally deliver the decision. At the same time, a mysterious man in a cloak and sunglasses placed a bouquet of flowers on a grave, then led a motorcade straight to the press conference. One of his men, already waiting at the gate, handed him a key card to get inside. Suddenly, every electronic device in the hall malfunctioned. The man led a bespectacled official to the restroom. The government commissioner was inside. He immediately threatened the commissioner to change his decision. Naturally, the commissioner refused. In the scuffle, he knocked off the man's sunglasses. It was Pasha, the man who had vanished 6 years ago. He pulled out a syringe and forcibly injected his own blood into the commissioner. As the commissioner collapsed unconscious, Pasha and his men rushed out of the restroom. Security tried to block them, but Pasha's guards opened fire without hesitation. The press conference erupted into chaos. Pasha escaped in a vehicle, but the police were quick to respond. He used telekinesis to disable one police car, but many more followed close behind. He had to abandon the car and flee into an alley. Surrounded again, his powers activated once more. With overwhelming force, he brought every officer to their knees, all except one, dressed in black, who was still standing. Pasha raised his weapon to finish the job, then froze. It was his friend, Lyosha. In that split second of hesitation, a bullet from the shadows struck Pasha. He fled the scene, wounded and disoriented. By dusk, he barely made it to the cemetery caretaker's shack. There, he collapsed onto the bed and lost consciousness. Meanwhile, Lyosha quickly contacted Anya and Gosha to report Pasha's sudden reappearance. While the group debated what to do, Gosha suggested turning to a major general from the Security Bureau. He was one of the few who truly understood Pasha and already had a lot of data on him. Anya confirmed it was indeed Pasha in the surveillance footage. She wanted to question the commissioner who had held the press conference, but the man mysteriously dropped dead in the meeting room. Just yesterday, he had stood before cameras and shockingly reversed his position, supporting the nuclear company's plan once again. Now he was dead for no apparent reason. At the same time, Pasha finally regained consciousness. His eyes were bright, no longer lifeless as before. The cemetery keeper said, "Now you're finally alive." For the past 6 years, Pasha had visited a particular grave every week, but he remembered none of it. It turned out his body had been controlled by a sentient force from the restricted zone. Only now had his real mind returned. He immediately grabbed a computer and messaged Anya through social media. After 6 years, their reunion was full of emotion, but Lyosha remained cautious. He hadn't forgotten what Pasha had done. Pasha, confused and innocent, said the last thing he remembered was defeating the villain at the swimming pool. As far as he knew, Anya and the others had all died in that battle. Everyone was confused. Why was Pasha's memory so different? To seek answers, they returned to the cemetery. The nameless tombstone Pasha had visited, Anya guessed, was for her and Lyosha, because in his altered mind they were already dead. Pasha suddenly staggered, his mind spinning. He realized this was a lie planted by the zone's consciousness. But why? Elsewhere, Sergei received a visit from a scruffy stranger. His name was Sergeyev, a lifelong researcher of human blood. He discovered that the deceased commissioner had an extremely rare blood type, golden blood. He'd only seen it 3 times. Those who had it often possessed unusual abilities. In the morgue, Sergeyev used an old machine to test the commissioner's blood. It was golden, no doubt. The coroner found a puncture mark on the commissioner's arm, evidence of an injection. Another analyst reported that Pasha's fallen guards also had golden blood. Then Gosha offered a key clue. Someone had hacked the security system to create Pasha's keycard. Among the 6 security chiefs, there was likely a traitor. Sergei gathered them all. One guard panicked and refused to cooperate. When Sergeyev approached with a blood test device, the man bolted and leapt through a window. There was no doubt he was another golden-blooded infiltrator. At that moment, Gosha received a message from Anya. Pasha wanted to meet Sergei. Without delay, Sergei arrived with Gosha and Sergeyev, the blood expert. They learned Pasha had been mentally controlled for 6 years, remembering nothing. Sergeyev, confident, said the brain records everything. Even if a memory is blocked, it can be recovered in a hypnotic state. He pulled out a pen, ready to conduct hypnosis. Sure enough, with eyes closed, Pasha revealed secrets even he didn't know. His golden blood worked like a virus. It could be transferred to others. It granted powers, but also absolute obedience to Pasha. However, mismatched recipients often died instantly. For the past 6 years, Pasha had been building a massive machine at the power plant. It would allow one person to travel back in time. The machine was nearly ready. They were all curious. Who was the machine meant for? Suddenly, the restricted zone's consciousness awoke inside Pasha. He used his mind to hurl a car toward the group. Sergei sacrificed himself to push Anya to safety, getting thrown into a river. Dozens of masked men arrived, guards controlled by the zone. Pasha's true self once again vanished, taken away by the enemy. Sergei's body was never found. But Anya and the others were determined to save Pasha. Sergeyev had long been preparing. Pasha's powers came from special particles in his golden blood that manipulated magnetic fields. Sergeyev had invented a device that suppressed those particles, nullifying the powers. He also created a powerful antigen plasma that, once injected, would destroy the golden blood entirely. Hope reignited. They prepared to head for Chernobyl. Sergeyev insisted on joining them and unveiled a vintage car he'd kept for decades. It looked exactly like the one they used in the past timeline. On the road, Anya couldn't help but worry. Could the plasma really bring Pasha back? Sergeyev explained, last time, Pasha's mind reawakened after injecting his blood into the commissioner and losing a lot of it, diluting the golden blood. The plasma would do the same. After a grueling journey, they finally saw the Pripyat sign again. Meanwhile, the darkened Pasha had reached the plant. The massive time machine was complete. He donned protective gear and entered the deepest part of the reactor. As he adjusted the controls, a ghostly figure appeared beside him. It was Sorokin, Pasha's old acquaintance, and the source of the zone's consciousness. He had possessed Pasha for years and planted false memories of Anya's death. It was all to make Pasha build the time machine, to bring back his friends. But Sorokin's real goal was to send himself, the consciousness, back in time and regain his physical body. That would destroy the current world entirely. His only worry was when they'd arrive in the past. The pull was strongest on the day of the Chernobyl disaster. It was likely to return there. To remove interference, Sorokin kicked Pasha out of the reactor's core. Meanwhile, Lyosha and the others arrived near the power plant. With guards at the entrance, they scaled the wall with their gear. By coincidence, Pasha emerged alone. Lyosha approached, but Pasha was still unconscious inside. Anya activated the device. An invisible field spread outward. It worked. Pasha collapsed. They quickly injected the antigen plasma into his body, but more guards soon arrived. Lyosha shouted, "This isn't good!" But before anyone could act, Pasha stood up again. The guards began turning their weapons on each other. Pasha had regained his true mind. He rushed to the control room, but the machine had already started. Then he had an idea. If they could all enter the core chamber and focus their thoughts, they might shift the target date. Except for Gosha, everyone went inside. Sorokin was furious. He launched a magnetic attack. Pasha tried to fight back, but barely held on. At the last moment, Gosha entered with a magnetic shield device. It gave them breathing room. Pasha urged everyone, focus on the day after the party. That's when it all began. But the device overheated and exploded. One by one, Lyosha and the others were killed. Pasha screamed, "I will fix everything!" The time machine launched. Darkness fell. And when Pasha opened his eyes, the world had changed. He had arrived on the day after the party, but this time things were different. The maintenance man was turned away, and the Chernobyl trip never happened. Something still felt missing. He stepped outside, just in time to see that man arrested for unlawful imprisonment. Then Anya stepped out of the room, destiny at work. She came up and asked to borrow his phone. Pasha's eyes lit up. Some connections just can't be denied, and so the story ends.